Welcome to the Graybeard Wisdom Podcast, where host Mark Freeman explores the stories and strategies shaping food service's future. Today's guest is Karen Malody, founder of Culinary Options LLC, brings decades of food service expertise to the evolving conversation around corporate dining. With her deep understanding of menu development, workplace culture, and operational strategy, she explores the ins and outs of where corporate dining is headed. Malody highlights the shifting expectations of employees, the growing demand for wellness-driven offerings, and the operational challenges companies face in balancing cost, quality, and innovation. Her insights reveal how corporate dining is no longer just about feeding people. It's about creating environments that foster productivity, community, and well-being. Let's dive in.
Well, hey, Karen, welcome to the Graybeard Wisdom Podcast. How's it going today?
Great. Who has a gray beard?
Yes, don't we all? Don't we all? Right?
Getting there.
I've done some research and trying to get fake beards to put on people, as I send them, but haven't improved that yet. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. But thanks for joining us, and it's going to be great conversation to have with you about where you've been, where you're going, and kind of some of the things that you've bumped into along the way there. So maybe just start out by telling us a little bit about, your past history. I know you were with Starbucks and now you're with Culinary Options, but maybe give me a little bit of a kind of recap of where you've been on your journey.
Well, that's a mouthful, explaining that.
Go for it.
I suppose the first part of the journey that is relevant is that I got my master's degree in psychiatric social work and did that for a number of years and decided that it really wasn't my passion. It didn't cause a flame to flare inside of me. And my passion had really always been food. I grew up on a farm. We did our own butchering, our own gardening, our own canning. So food was just absolutely the biggest delight in my life. And I thought, I can do this. So I went to work in a cheese shop for minimum wage. And people who'd been in the program, the psychology program with me, would come into the cheese shop and think for sure I'd lost my mind. But from there, one thing after another evolved, and I started a cooking school.
Oh.
And a catering service. And as a result of that, some people in various restaurants around Seattle took my classes, and I was hired by one of the groups to become their menu development director. I worked for restaurants, RSI, which later became Satisfaction Guaranteed Eateries, for 6 years, and then I was recruited to go to Larry's Market, which was a phenomenal store. Perhaps you remember it.
I do, yeah. I watched some videos on it.
I miss it. And I became a vice president of food services and oversaw the commissary also. From there, I was recruited to go to Starbucks as menu development director and was there for almost 4 years. And once I left, I decided it was time to share my learning and my skills with others to help them build their businesses. And that has been over 25 years now.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm still paying the bills.
Well, and I know your claim to fame at Starbucks. Maybe tell our audience a little bit about that.
I led the team who created the Frappuccino.
Oh, wow. And so it's all your fault, huh?
It's all my fault. All those calories, all that sugar. I know. Terrible thing. I just wish I had negotiated a small penny per Frappuccino. I would perhaps be retired now. I'm sure I would be, as a matter of fact.
Well, it sounds like I mean, it's, gosh, what a career, right? Starting in a cheese shop, and I know, you and I are really good friends, and so I know you grew up in Chewelah, Washington, which is this small little farming community, and well, over in the eastern part of Washington, and a cheese shop just seems like I think of French cheese and wine and things that go along with that, but I don't see that associated with Chihuahua. So,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
maybe was that in Chihuahua that you did that?
No, very much not.
Ah,
It was in Seattle. Yeah, I got my master's degree. I came to Seattle after graduating from Whitworth College
oh yeah.
to complete my master's over here at the University of Washington. So the cheese episode was here in Seattle. It was one of the best cheese shops in America at the time, voted so.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. That's where you would be.
I hope so.
So the other part of your story seems to be around menu management and menu creation and that sort of thing. Maybe tell us a little bit about what that is and how it applies to, corporate food service or, the things that you're working on now.
Well, it absolutely applies to corporate food service as well as any independent commercial restaurant. No question about it. I really cut my teeth on menu engineering, food cost management, operational sensibility around menus at RSI as menu development director. I was given some very rigorous tasks to reduce food costs by a certain percent, to make sure that there was innovation around menu development, but also um, executable. Uh,
Yeah.
in the restaurants, because each of the restaurants, FX McCrory's, Leshai Lake Cafe, Jake O'Shaughnessy's, they were all different in terms of their physical structure and their line layouts and their back of the house production kitchens. So I learned very quickly that managing food costs was a very tricky business, that it involves procurement, it involves avoiding waste. It's it's just it's executable. And if
Yeah.
all of those things aren't covered, then you likely won't be pleased with your food cost goals, taking into account that I also had to be responsible for menu development in such a way that the labor percent was also in line. So if I presented ideas that were too complex or that sort of blew up the inventory with too many new things, then that I learned very quickly that one must learn to be innovative within a certain parameter if you're responsible for managing these various costs. So it was an amazing learning experience.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like you get, like you said, you get labor involved, you get equipment involved, you get supply chain involved, you get all these things involved. I mean,
Yeah.
did your I don't know, your college education or your cheese shop experience give you the knowledge base to be able to do that, or did it was more kind of a trial and error kind of a thing, and learn by listening to chefs or listening to managers or listening to the market or whatever? I mean, how did that kind of develop?
Yeah, well, very much the latter. I just, first of all, I'm a real believer that if you really want to learn and become an expert at anything, you have to kind of shut your mouth, listen, get your ego out of the way,
Yeah,
and just really put yourself in the position of being a learner and a beginner. So I just soaked up everything as fast as I could and really took seminars, read books, helped co-found the Northwest Culinary Alliance. I mean, it was just a matter of saying, I can do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be damn good at it.
Right.
You know,
Perseverance.
perseverance, absolutely. So
Huh.
I learned all of that in the 6 years, helped reinvent 7 menus, three from scratch because we were opening new restaurants all at the same time. And I was also responsible for training the chefs and being allies with them. Uh, I've
Yeah.
worked with some amazing chefs over the years. I really have. And once they realize that I'm there to support them and not compete with them, because as I've asserted for years, being good at menu development and even recipe creation and documentation is not exactly the same skill as being a great chef or kitchen manager. I have
Oh,
huge admiration for the people who stand there every day.
oh yeah, and totally. I mean, their passion is, getting the food from its raw state to its cooked state, if you will,
Yeah.
and the whole idea about, spreadsheets and, PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff is really not what they're happy with. And so you probably filled a gap for them that, that took a little bit of a load off of their plate, if you will. And so maybe I don't know. Tell us how did you manage all of that? Because chefs aren't necessarily known for their friendliness to outsiders, you know?
Especially myself, one of the chefs who is still a dear friend. I believe his comment when I came on board was, "Who is this housewife who's stepping into a space?" And he says, I tease him about that today.
I bet.
But you're right. In a way, I was a liaison between the owner and the chef and the line cooks who had to stand every day to execute whatever I created. So I got them involved in the creation process. I provided them with logic for the menu items that I was suggesting. And I think they just really did ultimately, to your point, appreciate that they didn't have to sit down and develop new recipes.
Yeah,
They didn't have to do the costing of the recipes, document the recipes, create kitchen manuals.
yeah,
So, yeah, they just ultimately, I think we just became a really great team. Same at Larry's because we had a very robust food service division, you probably recall.
I do.
At Larry's, wow, the service counter and the bakery and the deli, we had cafes.
It was way ahead of its time for grocery stores at the time. Now it's normal, normal affair.
That is really true. In fact, I believe, well, I don't know how what the data behind it, but people from other parts of the country were constantly coming in and being given permission to study what we were doing, take pictures, talk to people, etc. So you're right, it was on the cutting edge, no question about it. Wegmans, uh, also
Uh-huh.
on the East Coast, Zupans in Portland. There weren't many at that time who had full-fledged, multiple concept kiosks and food courts in their stores. In fact, I developed the Panizza, which was a panini pizza concept kiosk. I developed a taqueria. I mean, we had great fun. I mean, we had terrific food.
Well, I guess that takes me into the other question, though, is like, because you've been on the cutting edge of, of innovation, if you will. Where, how do you get your ideas? How do you know that you're going to have a panini pizza? Or, I mean, how do you, there's nobody to look to really to say, oh, let's copy what they're doing because you're creating it. How do you do that?
That's a really great question. How do I do that? Well, one, I'm a voracious reader. And I look outside of food service. And again, this is for ideas. The many phenomenal things exist outside of the food service box. And I think that often we forget as hospitality and food service people to gain inspiration from sources that may not have a thing to do with food service.
I
Social,
love it. I
you
love
know,
that.
social
Yeah.
behavior, cultural evolution, financial, economic evolution. It's really important to not be a one-trick pony. And I think sometimes we forget to look outside and, expand, create a bigger box, and maybe not a box at all, preferably. Uh,
Hmm.
so I think from reading so much and observing and having the incredible, wonderful ability to travel all over the country, I see so much and it triggers ideas. Often I think I've shared with you, Mark, back in the day, management advisory service consultants like myself who are not food service designers
Right.
weren't even invited to equipment seminars. And that really rankled me. So I was on a mission to explain to FCSI, Food Service Consultant Society International, which I've been a member since 2004, that was really nonsense because those of us who are responsible for menu creation, concept creation, get a lot of inspiration from seeing what's going on with equipment. So I made it part of my journey to become an expert in equipment also because boy, some of the things that have been created, Mark, I couldn't have thought of certain menu ideas 10 years ago even, let alone
Yeah.
20 or 30.
Huh.
So I've just made, I don't specify equipment. I highly recommend certain types of equipment in order for the menu to be produced properly in the restaurant or the food service venue of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to explore the equipment piece of it in just a second, but you bring up, how you get ideas and that sort of thing. I mean, so maybe what are two or three things that you're thinking about now that our audience might say, "Oh, I could include that in my operation," or that's a great idea. Maybe hit on a couple things that spinning in your head now from the observations that you've done, and just to stop for a second and say, I totally get what you're talking about. Is you got to get out of the food service world to see what's going on in other parts of the world to be able to then bring whatever you learn back into food service, right? I mean, that's a little bit of how I approached my dream stage when I was at Microsoft, right? I mean, it's funny. I had, there's stuff spinning in my head all the time, and I went to a flower show and got ideas from a flower show that I was able to bring back into the food service. So and again, I really resonate with what you're saying. But again, take it up to where we are now. You talked about the past, but what's what's hot and cool that's coming in the world of where you are, menus or that sort of thing.
Well, boy, let me see if I can unpack that. Uh, fir- First of all, what came to my mind is the amazing um, exploration of global, it's called third world cuisine now, that
Okay.
it gets renamed all the time. The flavors, textures, etc., that are authentically present in so many global cuisines. That is street food also.
Yep. Yep.
It's just amazing. And that is so when you really think about the types of breads and wraps that are available around the world
Oh,
and
yeah.
how you can use them as the container for
Yep.
for a sandwich and what you can put between those pieces of bread, it's endless. And you can really keep your equipment package at a minimum. As we've discussed before, the bigger a menu, higher food costs, more equipment, and often more space.
Uh-huh.
So this containment of menu content and really precise focus. So the guardrails are really clear and you don't go off into nacho and teriyaki land, right?
Yep. Yep.
But I really want to point something out. All this discussion today about multifunctional equipment, it can be, many things can be multifunctional, but it's not multifunctional if you only use your combi oven to steam.
Right.
So to truly make something multifunctional, you have to learn and understand everything that piece of equipment can do. So it's education around the capacity of equipment that I feel is still an Achilles heel in our culture. So that's number one. Understand what that multifunctionality is,
Yep.
and then look at your production schedule so that you can time what that piece of equipment needs to do. So, in other words, it can't be multifunctional if you need it to do four different things at the same time. So, it's often I find still that chefs do not always view their kitchens as basically a production center, a food manufacturing center. So
Yeah.
it isn't about this piece of equipment and this piece of equipment and this. It's how do they work together and how do you optimize what labor you do have in such a way that you can do more with less. A great example, if you've got a combi oven and a blast chiller freezer, it's how you use those two pieces of equipment together that allows you to batch your production and save labor if you really sit down and work it out. And I have helped some people do that because they have to look at production in an entirely different way.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you hit a key point with training. And I equate it, like I said, I get away from food service once in a while. So I have a wood shop at my house and I have to know how those machines work so that I can produce whatever it is that I produce. If I don't know how the machine works, but the way that I learn in my wood shop is by doing it, right? And I guess and you talked about training with, let's say, a combi oven. A combi oven is multifunctional, no question about it. And
Right.
so okay, you drop the machine in the kitchen and then say, okay, chef, have a great time. I mean, how do you get them to, number one, want to learn, and then also then learn how to operate this equipment as you put it in?
Boy, it is truly in my mind, Mark. I call it the Achilles heel. It's the weak spot. You know, the food service industry is very complex. There, you've got the dealer designer, the kitchen equipment um, contractor, the architect, the rep groups, and much of the time, operators don't even know who to call when.
Yep.
So I will often be the person who sees equipment being underutilized because I'm out in the kitchens working um, from a culinary perspective most of the time. Uh, you're right, and that's exactly how it happens most of the time. So the designer specifies a piece of equipment. Let's stick with combis. The combi shows up, it's installed, and let's hope it's been installed properly.
I was just going to say that. You got to make sure it gets installed
Yeah,
right.
which often does not happen
I know, I
more
know.
than anybody would realize. And then of
Yeah.
course the manufacturer is blamed that his equipment's a lemon. And so okay, so there it sits. Typically someone from the rep group for that brand comes out, shows the chef or the kitchen staff how to turn it on, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And very, very minimal, fundamental instruction.
Well, they hand them the operations manual and say, go for it.
It's it's so sad.
Yeah.
Off they go, and I'm not putting them down. That's their job as defined
Yeah.
today. Um, so then you hope the chef is still there a month later, or half of the people that were taught. And uh, still, Mark, a lot of people are very intimidated by technology in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and are in many cases happy to say so. Like, I see this big monstrous thing, and I'm not sure how to program it, and so you're stuck. Who do you call to come out and give you in-depth training? Fortunately, I know some people.
Uh-huh. You know people in high places. Yep.
Exactly. Who will, for a fee, come out, in one case, work an entire week with the executive chef in a huge hospital to rethink everything about his production methodology. And it it changed his life. I mean, it
Oh,
just changed
sure.
his life.
Yeah.
So sometimes it costs designers today can build in to their specifications um, someone, often the executive chef from the manufacturer, most of them have them now,
Uh-huh.
will come out for a certain fee and do more in-depth training. And it's everything. It's worth its weight in gold to see a piece of equipment that costs a lot of money be used in a way to help the kitchen be more efficient and keep their labor under control. It's so sad when
Well,
equipment.
it is. It is. But, and I can remember we'll stay with ovens, the ovens of the past, it had an on-off switch and that was it. And now they've got, buttons all over them. And the buttons are like, they try and make them user friendly, but they're really not. And so, is there some onus on the manufacturers to be able to, in this age of AI that we're really going into, is there some ways that, they can help with the training process to be able to make it more intuitive to, what you're supposed to do or how it's supposed to work, even if you just get a manual?
Yes, fortunately the answer to that is yes, and because in the long run, in the last few years, I think the manufacturers have really stepped up to this. A huge percent now have executive chefs,
Yeah.
just for this reason, because when you think about it, it's for them to gain so much from offering that training, because if their equipment is out in the field not being used, being misused, it does not do anything to elevate their brand. So this is why the ownership of all of these aspects can be really muddy and tricky at times. The distributor doesn't necessarily have that knowledge. Most of the manufacturers are trying to train someone in their rep group to be able to do this, but they often have 20 to 30 products they're representing, so they cannot be experts in all of that. So um, God bless the manufacturers, honestly. They are really taking a lot of responsibility for this, for this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and again, the equipment piece of the kitchen is so important.
Well, it is. And, if I ever see one more tilt skillet used to store clean bar towels, because when I see a piece of equipment not even being used, that tells me either the menu wasn't designed to use it, the people don't know how to use it, or well, usually one of those things, because it's one of the most multifunctional pieces of equipment on earth.
Well, and that takes me into something too, is that, and I've heard you say this, that menu drives everything, right? Instead of okay, some kitchen builder just says, well, we don't know what they're going to serve, but we'll put all this equipment in. And then, like you say, a tilt skillet gets used for bar towels and that sort of thing. But so how do you get the industry, if you will, to start thinking more like build it from the menu first, then build your kitchen around it with still having the versatility to be able to, bring in the new items that you may suggest because you saw it in Timbuktu, right?
Correct. Yeah. The well, I guess you keep harassing the industry as I have around this topic, because I really care about the people in kitchens worldwide.
Yeah.
The degree to which some of us can help make their lives easier and better benefits everyone in the industry. And it's been an issue for a long time, Mark, and it needs to be addressed consistently and constantly. No blame. Just here's the situation. How do we tackle this? How do we make it easier? And one of the biggest shocks, as you know, for me in non-commercial, has been the degree to which my friends who are kitchen designers are asked to design kitchens before there's even an operator, let alone a menu or a concept.
Yep.
Um, what has begun to happen, and it delights me, is many of the corporations who are spending huge dollars on building out new kitchens and get very tired of renovating new kitchens before they've
Yep.
even been used, when an operator comes in and says,
That won't work,
that
right?
won't work, right?
Yeah.
So I've worked now with a number of large companies who finally stepped up and said, we're not doing that anymore. Come in, work with us to create our vision for what we want for service, create a vignette that explains what it is, what equipment is needed, what labor is needed, etc. We are going to include that detail in our RFP. And if someone is not willing to come in and execute our vision, they should not respond, because we are not going to renovate a brand new kitchen. We're done. So it can be done, Mark, but it's going to take a while, I think, for people to realize there are people who can help them do that, like MAS consultants. And I just keep writing about it and talking about it and doing
Yeah.
presentations on it. I really don't know what else a person can do except slow and steady pressure.
Yeah, and you bring up visioning, and I've had the pleasure of being a part of some of your visioning exercises, and I guess maybe talk a little bit about your process. How do you sit with a customer, a client, and get them to come up with a vision and ideas around menuing and that sort of thing so that they can put it into their RFP or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't materialize when somebody says, okay, let's put our vision in the RFP. Well, my
Right.
God, there's a huge exercise around that. Maybe talk a little bit about, your visioning world and kind of how you approach that and maybe some success stories that you've had related to that.
Um, it is amazing to me how there often is not a true vision and brand pillars or standard operating procedures that are clearly stated. So it's like if you don't know what the vision is and what your operating principles are, then how on earth do you create a menu, uh, uh, anything, quite
Yeah.
honestly, anything? So often what I have found over the years, and this started when I was a therapist. So my background in psychology really comes into this. No,
Yes, it does.
no question about it. I know that people have in their minds and in their hearts a nugget of an idea. So my goal is to help them explode that nugget into a full-fledged vision and concept. I want to open a burger bar is not a concept. It's not a vision. It's like
Right.
it's an idea.
Yeah.
I think we discovered in boot camp there are 14 ways to cook a burger. So what kind of burger? What kind of bun? What is this thing you're trying to create?
Yep.
And I'm a big fan and always have been, and again, coming from therapeutic work, of a thing called prospection. Are you familiar with that?
No, tell me about it.
It's if you can envision the future, you can then make decisions in the now that help you get there.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then you're going like this all the time. There are no guardrails because, and where this really emanated was truly back when I was getting my master's, and Fritz Perls was be here now, was just don't push the river, it flows by itself. I was into all that, all those therapy methods.
Sure.
And um, and I've always been fascinated by the, Eckhart Tolle. Now, many people in that arena, prescribe to be here now, be fully present. Totally agree with that. Yet, if you don't have prospection as to where you're trying to get, then you can't make informed decisions in the now that help you get there.
Yeah.
You're just all over the place. Sure, let's
Well,
put it on the menu or whatever. It's just crazy.
yeah, and I totally get that, but I would say 90% of clients probably have no clue what that future even what it creates or what could be created. How do you get them to think out of the now and into the future? What's the process to get them there?
Well, a big part of the process, Mark, is to ask questions. I'm a big fan of asking questions, not telling people, but asking them deliberate, strategic questions that forces them in a kind way to answer them.
Yeah.
And you know that part of the exploration, because generally they have something in their mind, and my goal, our goal as consultants, in my opinion, should be coaxing that out of them, getting them to talk, say whatever, share ideas that they might think are dumb. It's helping people get outside of their own heads to just say stuff and not worry if it makes sense at the time or whatever, because um, as you saw in the time we shared that experience, people are they're very fearful. Uh,
Yeah.
they think they don't have an idea. They think they're dumb. They're shy. They're bashful. They're insecure. And so part of the process just has to be creating a safe space for people to.
Right.
It's hard in a room where because I give people homework um, that helps me assess where is there alignment at all in the thinking of the people in the room. And in some cases, there's amazing alignment and it makes it a lot easier. And in some cases, I've walked in and boy, they are all over the map in terms of
Well,
their
yeah,
thought.
and there's different levels of leadership in the room as well. And so, I don't say a dishwasher is going to be intimidated to speak up when the vice president of operations is in the room, kind of a thing.
Uh,
There's this structure that intimidates people. And again, I think the hard piece of it, or the strategy, if you will, is those people, they have some great ideas, right?
Oh,
And
man.
it's just getting them out. And then all of a sudden, the VP of operations says, "Oh, right, and you create this environment where there's can be back and forth between these different levels of leadership, right?"
Yes, absolutely. And as a facilitator of those sessions, I have to be very conscientious. Um, a couple of times over the years, I have called a break and have had a little walk
Yeah,
with the leader, who, despite the rules, is inhibiting process and inhibiting the ability for people in the room to feel safe. Uh,
yeah.
it can't work that way, because if everyone is not able to realize there's no one in the room that's more important than anyone else, um, it can brew trouble.
Well, and sometimes that's the breakthrough that the team needs, is that to get rid of those levels and just talk to each other and listen to each other, right?
Yeah, it was so great this year at boot camp, uh, food service design boot camp, Mark. I asked everyone who was beginning a project or in a project to write down what the vision is for the project. Okay? And you could see it was like,
Yep.
okay, so that was fine. Then I explained what a powerful vision statement includes, or how inspirational it can be. And
Yeah.
then I asked everyone to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being hit all the buttons, inspiring, et cetera, to rate their vision statement. And the highest score was a 4.
Right.
So what they realized is, building a new cafe on campus is not a vision. That's a task.
Right.
No, well, then what are you going to do? Is it going to be cool? And why would it be cool? And what can you do in that new place to create a wonderful experience for people? And to help people understand they have the power to do that.
Well, yeah, and I think about in the corporate world, every corporation has a vision, a mission, all of those pillars, all those kinds of things, right? But I would say, again, about 90% of the population doesn't know what they are or how it plays, how the words play out in actions, right? I mean, so
Exactly.
there must be some part of what you do that gets that information out as well so that people start to understand, oh, we do have a culture here and and it's maybe built around pizza or it's built around spaghetti or whatever the menu item might be, right? Is
Right.
the diversity in the workforce and all those kinds of things play into the menu, right? So I
Oh,
guess
boy.
the company culture definitely has a role in this.
It's enormous. In fact, I usually have a slide at the beginning of all my work that covers what the company vision and mission and pillars are. Which
Yeah,
so I do a lot of research on the company before I go into the sessions because two important points. One, often people working in the company have never looked at the website or understand what their company is about.
right.
Secondly, it is very important to align the vision for food service with the vision of the company. It's a lot easier to sell a program up to leadership if it rings the bells of the vision and mission of the company. It's
Exactly.
in fact, it's essential.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And to me, what comes to mind on the flip side of that is that, companies like the Ritz-Carlton, they have a mission, and I don't know, it's five or six, pillars, and each employee is required to carry those pillars in their pocket and then they get checked. And so apparently, I don't know how it works, but if they don't have their card, have some discussion about, their culture and that sort of thing. So to me, it's so important to Ritz-Carlton to have their culture strong is that they require things like that, right? So there's this spectrum of from there to down to nobody knows what the or a company doesn't even have one,
No,
kind of a
it's
thing.
true. It's true. I think a lot of companies need to have a visioning session
Yeah,
without question. And in fact, I think that in a couple of cases, I can think of the work we've done in the food service department and dining services that have really triggered action in other departments. And it's
sure.
like, hey, we've done this, and well, you know what? We can do this too, which is great. I love seeing that. I just
Well, and they don't just accept it. The because of the food service had success with getting their people wrapped around, a culture and seeing that it works, in the long you you know, it's so much easier to make decisions when like you said, what the guardrails are and how you can go into the future because there's some rules, if you will.
No, there are, and if you don't have that prospection or that that future goal setting, then it becomes very difficult to figure out what KPIs should be and and to realize what is really worthy of measurement and
Yeah,
metrics, because it would be like a football field not having goalposts. You'd just be running around the field, never knowing if you hit
Yeah.
the mark or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I do see a lot of that. I see managers trying to hold people accountable for things that have never been documented. Maybe the person who's being measured didn't even realize the why behind the KPI. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to connect all these dots or people won't get it. People need to know the why.
Well, so then take me, okay, so now we've got the culture, we've got the strategies, we got the missions, we got the pillars, all that kind of stuff. Take me through how then that applies to the menu and how you develop the menu, but then also the rest of it, how much, what equipment's going to support that and whatever. I mean, maybe just take me through a little bit of the kind of the process now that you've done this visioning and you've got everybody kind of aligned to be on the same page. How does that play into them then thinking, okay, future looks like this, that we should have tacos instead of, I don't know, mimosas or, whatever.
Well, often one of the parts of the process of visioning is becoming more clear on who are your customers.
Uh-huh.
You know, often that hasn't been taken into consideration as much as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And especially, the demographics are in constant shift. And of every company, every campus, it's Gen Z now, and then it's Alpha,
Yep.
and all of that is very important to take into account, especially when you are looking out at a vision. Many things need to be taken into consideration. Like who are we feeding on a campus in 5 years, let
Yeah.
alone 10 years? What do I need to be looking at? But a very important thing also, Mark, comes out that I don't want to miss. Out of these sessions, once everyone agrees that there are certain steps that need to be taken, you've got to make sure you've got the right people on the team. Because now you've actually defined
Yep.
what you're trying to do and what you
Yeah.
committed to doing. And it helps leaders really evaluate more keenly. Do I have the right people on the team?
Yep.
Great to have a vision, but if I've got saboteurs, I guess it would be, if you just haven't got leaders on your team, that's kind of an important next step. That's not kind of, that is an important next step. Is
Well, and that's a hard one too,
oh,
because,
it's
you
really,
know, they worked really well in the old system, but oh, guess what? The system changed, and so now they don't work so well. I mean, classic example that I think of is, from scratch kitchen versus, take and open up a bag and put it on a sheet pan and heat it up. All of a sudden, if you move to a scratch kitchen, you've got to have some skill. And the person who could opened the bag perfectly, but
right,
then
right.
they can't, they can't cut a carrot, right? Kind of a thing.
Exactly. And again, Mark, this is not about good, bad, right, wrong, blame,
Right,
and
right.
it's just evolution.
Yeah,
And I'm also a big believer in what I call high firing, which is there are ways to let people go and really help them gain some new insights and move along in their careers without devastating them and making
yep,
them think they're just bad people or something.
yep.
So to your point, and like Simon Sinek says, getting the vision and pillars, it is truly the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
Then you have to start really, going down, down, down into the waters of, do you have the right people? How do you begin to shift your menu, um, and still bring your current customers along with you? Uh, are you going to really think seriously about some new food concepts and freshen the menu? And if so, do you have the right equipment in the kitchen and
Yeah,
do you have the skill set?
exactly.
I mean, it's not, I think sometimes people might think as they leave a visioning session that "Phew, we did it, we figured it out, we've got these pillars. Now what do we do? So translating all of that into action steps is so critical. And often it's frustrating if our scope of work, my scope of work, a consultant scope of work, doesn't include getting them through that next phase.
Well, like you said, that's the key to me, the key phase, right? Is okay, now we know where we're going. How the hell are we going to get there, right? You know?
Yeah.
And to me, you're right. That's the crux of it okay, we got the guardrails now. We know what we can and can't do, or what we should or shouldn't do, but what do we do? You know?
Absolutely. Now, and let's go there for a second. So, even more critically, if the people on the team who need to strategically map that out don't have that ability,
Oh yeah.
the vision is just going to sit on a poster somewhere.
Yeah, it'll look good, and that's where it usually ends up, right? They don't take it to the next step, like Ritz-Carlton, right? I
That's
mean,
right, because now um, uh, you've published what you're about, you've published now what you stand for, but we don't see it. So
right?
leadership can be
Yeah.
very touchy about, about this.
Well, and the people who participated in the visioning exercise get discouraged because they put all this energy into coming up with this stuff, and now nobody's using it. Nobody's doing anything with it, right? So there's got to be this discouragement factor that goes along with that too.
And in many cases, the leader of this particular amenity has 4 or 5 other amenities they're trying to manage. So they have to have key people in the right places on the team who have to execute. And I might also mention, Mark, in non-commercial, sometimes I wish was working a little more directly with the food service contractor
Uh-huh.
because so many of the ideas kind of belong in their court, according to the contract. Please bring new ideas
Yeah.
to me. Um, so the next best step is to help educate the client to really take seriously that they own the vision for their food service, so that they can direct and request things of the operator.
Well, and it makes it easier for the operator too, because then the operator knows the rules. They know where, where the company wants to take their food program, right?
It's another just, I think, tragedy. And you've been in corporate for services for many years. Is when we need to go out for RFP. This relationship just isn't working.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's just redo the RFP. What's your vision? What's your mission? What do you want in the RFP that helps you find the right partner? And you realize they don't have one, or and they're simply not working in partnership with their current vendor.
That's right.
So fix it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like relationship therapy.
Well, and that's where it goes back to your psychology training, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Negotiate, get it out in the open, figure out what's going on, take responsibility for the relationship.
This is just highly, yeah, we could go on for days, Karen, as
I
you
know.
well know, but I got to kind of wrap this up. But it's been a really interesting conversation, and wow, it's not cookies and French fries. It's a lot bigger than that. Just and as you talked about it, the menu, the the equipment, the training, all of this stuff that goes along with it. It's very, very complicated. And I think that's a tribute to, the world that you've lived in for a few years is trying to straighten all that out and make it so that people can actually use it, right? And so, it's very complicated. Like I said, we could go on for days to talk about this, but so I've got a couple questions that I ask my attendees or my participants here, and it's kind of a yes or a no question. I call it the lightning round, and so maybe just we'll go into this and see kind of where it takes us. So, jazz or rock and roll?
Jazz.
Are you a huge jazz enthusiast?
A moderate jazz enthusiast. And a certain kind of
But
jazz.
you, and no offense here, but you grew up in the 60s, 70s rock and roll era. Just okay. Domestic travel or international travel?
International.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Really?
Mm.
Well, I don't know. I would, I
All
would,
day long.
I would take you for a sweet person, but because you're so sweet, Karen.
I'm actually not interested. Well, I hope a sweet person. Okay. No, I'm not a big sweets eater.
Huh. But you like cheese.
I love cheese.
Yeah. Mountains or skyscrapers?
Ugh. I prefer cities, so I guess I'd say skyscrapers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have grown up on the farm. I would have.
Yeah, well, there were wonderful things about it, but I really don't want to go back there. Let's put it
Okay.
that way.
Let's see. Rice or pasta?
Oh, I love both. Pasta,
Okay. And I guess the last one, breakfast or dinner?
dinner.
Yeah. I see you as a dinner person. I've had many dinners with you.
Love dinner. I love good breakfast too, but dinner.
Well, so Karen, thanks so much for the wisdom that you've brought to the Graybeard Wisdom podcast. And I totally appreciate the conversation that we've had. Like I said, it could go on for hours and hours, I think, but I think it really will give some value to our audience. And so, again, I totally appreciate the time and the energy that you've put into your whole career, really. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's great.